Hey, good to have you back. Today I've got stories that prove reality is scarier than any horror movie. These actually happen to real people. Drop a subscribe if you enjoy this, and let's go. My cat refused to be around my husband, then I found what he was hiding. 26, 29 male. Sometimes animals pick up on things before we do. They sense what we're still blind to. This is one of those stories. I've been with my husband for 7 years, married for 5. We got our cat Luna about 5 years ago, and she immediately became his cat more than mine. She'd follow him around the house, sleep on his chest, beg for his attention. It was adorable how bonded they were. Everyone who met them remarked on it. About 4 weeks ago, something shifted. Luna stopped coming near him. At first, I thought she was sick or something was wrong with her. She'd leave the room when he entered. She wouldn't let him touch her, just completely rejected him out of nowhere. We took her to the vet. Blood work was normal. Nothing showed up. The vet said some cats just have mood swings. But it didn't feel random. It felt deliberate, like she sensed something. My husband kept saying it was weird, that Luna would snap out of it. Meanwhile, our marriage felt like it was shifting too, but I couldn't put my finger on what was happening. Small things. He was on his phone more, getting texts at odd hours, coming home later. When I asked, he'd get defensive or brush it off, and Luna just kept refusing him. Every single day, the same behavior. No physical reason, no explanation. Just an animal rejecting someone she'd loved for 5 years. And that refusal, that animal instinct kicking in, it was the first real warning sign that something was deeply, catastrophically wrong. But OP wouldn't understand why for another 2 weeks. The refusal got worse, way worse, and it was spreading like a crack in glass. Luna had always been his cat. For 5 years, she'd wake up with him in the morning, follow him around the house, sleep on his chest while he played video games. Now she wouldn't even be in the same room as him. If he walked into the living room, she'd actually hiss, and leave. If he tried to pet her, she'd swat at him. I'd never seen her do that to anyone. I took her to the vet, obviously. Spent 3 hours getting her checked out. All the blood work, everything. The vet found nothing. She's perfectly healthy, they said. Sometimes cats are just moody. Luna had never been anything but affectionate to him. But he was different too. He was always on his phone now, hiding the screen when I walked by. He'd step into the other room to take calls. His schedule changed without explanation. Suddenly, he was working late 3 or 4 nights a week. When I asked what was going on, he'd get irritated. When I asked directly what had changed, he got angry. I don't know. I don't want to talk about this, he'd snap. Then he'd lock himself in his office. She found herself analyzing every word, every gesture, looking for inconsistencies. Was he being deliberately evasive or was she spiraling into paranoia? The uncertainty was eating at her. He'd come home with explanations that didn't fit. She'd overhear fragments of calls in the next room. His phone would light up at odd hours. Each answer she pressed for led to anger. Each question made him pull further away. But Luna saw through it. She saw through him. And if an animal could sense this much wrongness, what did that say about what he was hiding? The question haunted her. 2 weeks in, and OP's anxiety was unbearable. Every time she tried talking about Luna, he shut it down. You're being irrational. She watched her marriage fracture in real time. I tried talking to him about Luna 3 more times that week. Each time he got defensive. The cat's fine. She's just moody. When I pushed back, told him how scared I was, he accused me of making his home unwelcoming by constantly bringing up the cat drama. Me, making him feel unwelcome. I started sleeping badly, replaying every conversation, wondering if I was losing my mind. My sister asked if everything was okay, and I couldn't bring myself to tell her because it sounded insane. My cat hates my husband. Luna was hiding under the bed most days. When she came out, she'd follow me like my shadow. If he entered the room, she'd bolt. Sometimes I'd find her staring at him. Not scared exactly, but alert. Protective. And he either didn't notice or didn't care. That's when the small lies started. He'd say he was going to the gym, then get snappy if I asked details. Do I need to check in with you? His phone got locked. He'd tense if I came near while he was texting. None of it made sense from someone with nothing to hide. The comment section was picking up on what OP was feeling. Cats absolutely know. They pick up on pheromones, behavioral shifts, guilt. Luna was protecting you. I'm genuinely scared for your safety. Get a lawyer involved before this escalates. Please be careful confronting him if he's tracking you. He doesn't respect your privacy or autonomy. This could escalate. Have an exit plan. One comment in particular resonated. This is the kind of post that's gonna haunt me. Animals sense danger. Your cat was screaming. I hope you're somewhere safe right now. Please update when you can. 2 weeks into the spiraling confusion, Oak got her answer. She found his laptop sitting open on the kitchen counter. He showed up at my work. I had to call security. I should start by going back 2 weeks. His laptop was just sitting there, open, screen unlocked. I wasn't snooping. It was right there. And once I saw the first message thread, I couldn't stop looking. There were hundreds of them. Dates going back months. Photos. I felt like the room was tilting. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the computer. He had been seeing someone from his office. It wasn't some vague emotional thing either. This was physical, recurring, ongoing. There were photos I didn't need to see, timestamps that showed patterns. But that wasn't even the worst part. After the initial horror of the messages faded into numbness, I clicked around his files, opened a folder marked Travel. Inside was an app I didn't recognize. I Googled it, location tracking. Not just casual Find My Phone location tracking. The kind where one person monitors another person's every movement, every stop they make. And he had been doing it to me, for months. That's when everything clicked. Luna wasn't just reacting to his infidelity, she was reacting to the violation of it. The sneaking around, the constant phone checks, the monitoring, the lies piled on top of lies. She sensed the betrayal in him before I ever had proof it was there. The cat understood that something was fundamentally broken about who he was in that moment. The comments came in immediately. People were devastated for her, but also something else, angry on her behalf. The tracking is the scariest part. That's not just infidelity. That's active surveillance. Please document everything and speak to law enforcement if he's monitoring your location without consent. Depending on where OP lives, tracking someone's location without consent can absolutely be a crime. Some jurisdictions charge it as stalking or harassment. OP should screenshot everything, get a lawyer, and report to police. This goes beyond infidelity. This is abuse. Your cat literally saved your marriage from being a complete lie. Some people would have never found out. You caught him. Now protect yourself. Change passwords, tell trusted people where you are. The confrontation came quick and brutal. He showed up at my work. I had to call security. I confronted him that same evening. I pulled up the messages on my laptop and watched his face go white. He tried denying it at first, claimed the messages were old, that he'd cut things off. But when I showed him the tracking app, he just went silent. No more denials, just excuses. I was stressed, he said. I needed space to figure myself out. Like monitoring my location without consent was some reasonable coping mechanism. I told him to leave. Spent that night copying everything. The messages, screenshots, phone records showing the tracker charges. The next morning, I was on the phone with a lawyer. She said we had more than enough for what we needed. The tracking app alone was grounds for harassment. The affair was just the emotional wreckage on top. 3 days later, he showed up at my office. Just walked past reception, found my desk, started begging me to work on us, and that he'd made a mistake. I could barely breathe, let alone respond. I called security and they escorted him out. He is now banned from the building. But here's the part that gets me. Luna was sleeping on my lap the whole time I was talking to him. The second his voice hit that particular tone, that apologetic, manipulative tone, she just got up and walked out of the room. 5 years of rejecting him, and somehow she still knows. What hits hardest about this one is the tracking app. He wasn't just cheating, he was controlling, monitoring. The violation of privacy is the thing that changes everything. You can forgive infidelity sometimes. You can work through betrayal. But when someone has been watching your location, tracking your movements, surveilling you while lying to your face, that's not a mistake, that's a choice. And the cat knew it. The animal instinct picked up on it before OP ever did. The fact that he got defensive about the cat is a red flag. Guilty people react emotionally to indirect accusations. He was already panicking before you found the proof. I didn't even realize that at the time, but you're right. When I first mentioned Luna wouldn't go near him, he got so angry. Looking back, that anger was pure panic. He knew something was wrong. Thanks for pointing that out. And that's where we leave this one. The eerie part, the part that sticks, is realizing that some instincts are older and sharper than any logic we have. On to the next one. I keep finding items in my grocery bags I never bought. I finally figured out who's doing it, and I'm genuinely terrified. 28 female. There's a particular kind of horror that comes when you realize someone is watching you. Not online, not theoretically, but actually, physically present, studying you. This story is about that moment of realization and everything that led up to it. I need to tell people how genuinely unsettling this is. It started about a month ago, and at first I thought it was just store mistakes. Cashier errors, you know how it is. The first time was at Whole Foods. I got home, unpacked my groceries, and there was this really nice vanilla candle in my bag. I checked my receipt, never charged. I figured someone just didn't scan it. I didn't think much of it. A week later, same thing at Trader Joe's. A silk pillowcase this time. High quality, probably 30 bucks. Not on my receipt either. I was actually pleased, honestly. Free nice stuff. But then it kept happening. Different stores, a moisturizer at Target, a pen at CVS, a scarf at the mall, every single time, not charged, never scanned, just in my bag. And I started really paying attention to what was going on. And then I found the therapist lotion. That's when I knew something was wrong. It was at my neighborhood grocery store. One I go to maybe twice a week. I was putting my stuff on the belt and the cashier rang everything up normally. I paid, I left, got home unpacking, and there it was. A fancy bottle of lotions that says therapist lotion for troubled skin. Not on my receipt. And I froze. Because that lotion exists because of something I've only told one person about. A skin condition I've been dealing with. A dermatologist appointment I went to 3 weeks ago that I never posted about anywhere. Someone knows my schedule. Someone knows what I buy. Someone knows my actual problems. And they're leaving me messages. This isn't random. This isn't a cashier mistake. Someone has been following me. Someone is deliberately placing items in my bag to let me know they're watching me. And that's where the real dread began. Because now she knew something crucial. Someone wasn't just being nice. Someone had been paying very close, very deliberate attention to her life. But here's the thing about realizing you're being watched. The realization is just the beginning. The waiting, that's where the real horror lives. But here's what happens when you can't explain something away anymore. You start looking for an answer. And the answer, once it clicks, changes everything. It happened again and again. Target, CVS, Whole Foods, different stores, same nightmare. A face cream I'd been wanting. A book on mindfulness I'd mentioned to exactly one person, my therapist. A specific herbal tea I only bought when I was anxious. A skincare brand I'd Googled at 3 a.m. on a bad night. Each one was carefully chosen, not random, not mistakes. Each one said, I know you. I know what you need. I'm here. That's when I thought about Marcus. We dated for 2 years. Broke up 2 years ago. He didn't take it well. Showed up at my apartment, called constantly, sent long emails. I eventually had to block him completely. He got the message and disappeared from my visible life. But Marcus remembered things, knew my routines, knew my favorite stores, knew the details about me that most people never notice. And the worst part? These items weren't mean. They weren't threatening. They were thoughtful. The face cream because he'd heard me complain about breakouts. The tea because he'd suggested calming herbal options. The book because he'd literally told me years ago that I needed to meditate more to quiet my mind. It was like he'd never really left. Like he'd been there the whole time, watching, learning. And now he was proving it. Slipping items into my grocery bags. Showing me he knew every move I made. She'd spent the last 2 years trying to forget Marcus. Trying to move on. But he'd been there the whole time. Watching, learning, leaving proof. The items in her grocery bags weren't gifts anymore, not in her mind. They were surveillance notes. Proof of presence. And they were delivered with the kind of intimate knowledge that only comes from someone who spent years learning your weaknesses, your preferences, your fears. That's when things got darker. I kept thinking about that lotion. It was a specific brand, one she recommended to me in therapy, not something I'd bought myself in years. A vanilla candle is generic. A pillowcase could be coincidence. But this wasn't coincidence. This was someone telling me they've been following my therapy appointments, watching me go in, watching what I buy there. And if they could track that, what else have they been tracking? Then I started going through everything. Every small thing that seemed off. There was a used copy of Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar that showed up at the bottom of my grocery bag from Whole Foods last week. I thought I'd absent-mindedly grabbed it from a clearance cart. But I haven't cared about Plath since college. We spent a whole month discussing depression and isolation when we were dating, his obsession with understanding every layer of my psychological makeup. He kept a notebook of things I said. I found it once and thought it was sweet. Now I realize it was a filing system. Then a book on attachment psychology, specifically about avoidant attachment patterns. Something we'd fought about constantly, something he'd analyzed me over for months. Just sitting in my bag at Trader Joe's, each item wasn't a mistake. Each one was a message. A proof of concept. He was showing me that he knows me, the intimate, fragmented parts of me. He was showing me he'd been studying. The internet did not miss the pattern. The fact that he somehow knew your therapist's exact hand lotion brand is absolutely chilling. This isn't coincidence. He's been deliberately tracking the intimate details of your life. File a police report immediately. Wait. He told you he moved states, but he's showing up at your Trader Joe's on your regular shopping day? He either never left or came back specifically for you. Both scenarios are nightmare fuel. Are you absolutely certain it's your ex? Could this be someone else from your past? Or maybe someone from work or therapy who's obsessed with you? I'm not 100% certain, but the items are too interconnected. The Sylvia Plath bookmark, the therapist lotion, the attachment psychology book about avoidant attachs, those aren't guesses. We spent years talking about our attachment patterns, going to therapy together, discussing our fears about intimacy. No one else would piece that all together unless they'd been studying me obsessively. And now that I'm thinking back to when we dated, his need to know everything about me, the way he'd remember tiny details I mentioned once, it all makes sense in a horrifying way. But the escalation hit different. A few days later, OP made a follow-up post. I opened the note. I should have called the police first. The Sylvia Plath bookmark arrived first. I found it in the bag at Trader Joe's, a first edition facsimile with his notes in the margins. He knows I've loved her poetry since college. He knows. That's what broke me about it. The bookmark was a message. Then came the attachment psychology book. Not subtle. Like he was showing me clinical evidence of why I'm the problem, why our relationship failed because of how I attach to people. I stood in my kitchen holding this book, understanding that he wasn't just watching me, he was rewriting the narrative, making me question myself. But then I found the envelope, sealed. His handwriting on the front with my name, no stamp, no mail. He put this directly in my bag. I know this is escalation. I know I should call the police, but I opened it anyway. Inside was a letter, pages. Him detailing every moment we shared that he thinks I've forgotten or misinterpreted. Him telling me he's been doing this to help me remember who I really am, who WE were, the kind and thoughtful person I was with him. I'm reading about being studied without consent and knowing I documented the evidence by touching it, by opening it, by not immediately photographing it sealed and calling for help. I should have known better. I should have called first. The comment section split hard on this one. I'd open the note immediately. You need to know what he's thinking to protect yourself. Knowledge is power here. Absolutely bad advice. That note is evidence. Once she opens it, any police report becomes compromised chain of custody is destroyed. She needs to leave it sealed, photograph it sealed, file the report, and let law enforcement open it as evidence. The note is useless to her the second she breaks the seal. The Sylvia Plath bookmark absolutely destroyed me. He's literally reconstructing your entire shared history through items. That's not love or nostalgia. That's obsession dressed up as thoughtfulness. The attachment psychology book is him trying to manipulate you into seeing his perspective on your relationship. Classic abuser tactic showing you evidence of your shared issues to justify his behavior. And here's where things stopped moving. She knew everything. She had proof. But she didn't call. She didn't file. The knowledge made it harder, not easier. So here's where it ends. OP never filed a report. She never called the police. That envelope sat on her kitchen counter unopened for 3 days, a physical threat she couldn't bring herself to address. And that's the part that keeps you up at night. Not just the stalking itself, but the paralysis it induces. When someone proves they know you, that intimately, that completely, it shatters something. I opened the note. Should have called the police first. I broke after 3 days of staring at that envelope. I know I shouldn't have opened it. Every crime show I've ever watched talks about contaminating evidence, and the second the seal cracked, I realized what I'd done. Inside was handwritten, detailed, intimate in the worst way. There were things only someone actively watching would know. My morning route, the barista by name, the bench in the park I sit on Thursday mornings. He'd cataloged all of it. He wrote about my habits like they were facts in a study, documented proof that he'd been everywhere I go. At the end, he said something about still keeping track, about always knowing where I am. That's when it hit me. I should never have opened that. By reading it, I confirmed the letter reached me. I reacted. I did exactly what he wanted. The comment section went immediately viral. Do not open that note. Seal it in a bag, photograph it sealed, file a police report, and let them handle opening it as evidence. Once you open it, it's contaminated and useless in court. This is textbook stalking, and it's clearly escalating. Every shopping trip, there's something new. You need to file a restraining order now before this escalates to something physical. What burns about OP's story is the weaponization of thoughtfulness. He used care as camouflage for control. The psychological horror isn't just being watched, it's being researched, being studied without consent. That knowledge that someone sees you more clearly than you see yourself, and they're using it to own you, not love you. That's what paralyzes you. That's the trap. On to the next one. My childhood neighbor was impossibly tall and would hand feed me over the fence. I saw her again last week and I'm terrified. This one comes from Reddit's Let's Not Meet, posted about 4 days ago by someone called Overgrown Memory. It's the kind of story where the title is hook enough. But then you read the post and realize the title doesn't even hint at how wrong things actually were. I was 8 when we moved to the house on Hickory Street. My parents never really explained our new neighbor. There was a 10-foot wooden fence separating our backyard from hers. I only knew she existed because she was impossibly tall. Maybe a week after we moved in, I was playing in the yard when I heard a soft sound from the other side of the fence. Then her hand came over the top. I've never been good at describing it. The hand was too long. All the fingers stretched out in ways that didn't match human proportions. The skin looked wrong, grayish, and the joints bent in places that shouldn't bend. Her nails were incredibly long, almost claw-like, but neat and filed smooth. She was holding what looked like a cookie, just offering it. I should have been scared. Every instinct I had as a kid should have screamed at me to run inside, but I wasn't. I just walked over like it was completely normal, reached up, and ate from her hand. She didn't say anything. After I finished the cookie, her hand just retreated back over the fence. It happened so fast that I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it, except the taste lingered, sugar, butter, something I couldn't identify. So far, it's just a single moment in time, a hand over a fence, a cookie, the strange non-reaction of a child's mind. But it was far from the last time she would appear. What started as childish curiosity became routine, and then something far more disturbing took shape. She came back the next day, and the day after. Within a week, I'd wake up anticipating the moment she'd appear above the fence with something for me to eat. Crackers, an apple, a sandwich, sometimes things I didn't recognize. I never questioned it. The hand itself was undeniably wrong. The skin had a texture I'd never felt, cool even on the hottest days. The fingers were impossibly long and moved with strange, jerky precision, like she was learning how to use them. Sometimes she'd hold the food at odd angles, uncertain. I could never see past the crown of her head. Just a dark, massive shape, looming impossibly high. She never spoke, not once. Just the thick, labored sound of her breathing, wet and deep. My parents noticed. My mother caught me at the fence with food in my mouth. I remember her jaw clenching, color draining from her face. She pulled me inside, made me rinse my mouth like I'd swallowed poison. When I asked who the tall lady was, she wouldn't answer. My father told her to stop asking. They exchanged a look, not anger, but fear. Shared fear. Like they'd suspected something all along, but hoped it wasn't true. My mother kept closer watch on me after that. My father would stand at the back door, staring at the fence, knuckles white. By midsummer, OP had accumulated enough details to form a truth they didn't have words for yet. The sounds, the movement, the way that shape loomed above the fence every single day. Patient and methodical. The geometry of her that didn't match anything in OP's world. By August, OP knew with absolute certainty that whatever stood on the other side of that fence was not a person, and she was always watching, always waiting for the next day. But it wasn't until years later, somewhere in my early teens, that I understood what I'd been doing all those times at the fence. I remember the exact moment it clicked. I was flipping through a nature documentary about primates, and their hand structure came up. The way their fingers articulate, the proportions, and suddenly the image of that hand offering me food over the fence snapped into horrifying focus. Those weren't human fingers. They couldn't have been. And if those fingers weren't human, then nothing about what stood on the other side of that fence was human either. I was around 14 when I finally worked up the courage to ask my mother directly. I walked into the kitchen one afternoon and just blurted it out. "What is she?" My mother's face went completely white. She sat down at the table without a word and stared at her hands for what felt like hours. When she finally looked up, I could see genuine fear in her eyes. Not fear of me, but fear of something. She told me to never speak about the neighbor, that it was something the family had learned to live with, and we were to do the same. End of discussion. My father's reaction was worse. When I brought it up to him separately, he just shut down completely. Wouldn't confirm or deny anything. Years later, I learned he'd actually looked into the property behind ours. The records, the owners, everything. But he never told me what he found. He just installed a taller fence. The post absolutely detonated when it hit Reddit. The community smelled something deeply wrong in every detail. The detail about not being able to focus on her face is what gets me. That's not just creepy, that's cosmically wrong on a level that makes my brain hurt. The way she just stood there motionless with an unfocusable face is absolutely nightmare fuel. Please tell me you contacted the police or someone about this. OP's responses in the thread expanded the picture, and the theories only got wilder. This is genuinely horrifying. What did your parents say when you finally confronted them about what she was? I confronted my mother after seeing the neighbor again, and she was genuinely terrified, more scared than I'd ever seen her. She admitted they'd never known what she was. My father had looked up property records when I was a teenager and started asking questions. The land behind ours had been bought and sold every 5 to 7 years, but the structures never changed. The current owners are listed under a generic surname with no online presence, no photos. My parents decided the safest move was building the fence, keeping me away and pretending it didn't exist. She mentioned they'd told a neighbor about it once, and that neighbor moved out within 6 months. After that, they just accepted it as something beyond their control. When I asked if my mother thought the creature would ever contact me again, she went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "We always thought it would forget you when you left home." The way she said it, I understood. She's shocked it didn't. A few days later, OP came back with an update. The neighbor had returned. She was standing at the gate this morning. My father is making calls. I was watering the garden yesterday at 7 in the morning in the space where my parents' old house stood. We'd moved back to fix it up after they passed. That's when I felt it. That cold you register before your mind catches up. Someone watching. She was at the property line. We took the fence down years ago, so she was just standing there, 30 feet away. And I'll lose some of you on this, but she looked exactly the same. Exactly, I still don't know how that's possible. She didn't speak. Just watched me the way she used to from over the fence when I was 8. That same patient, hungry look. I dropped the hose and went inside. My mother came to stay last month. When I told her what I'd seen, she went pale. Then she finally told me the truth. They never understood what the neighbor was. My father checked property records. Nobody was ever listed at that address. When my mother tried to approach the fence to see who was feeding me, the neighbor just wasn't there, wouldn't answer. Only for me. "We hoped she'd forgotten about you," my mother said. "We prayed she'd moved on. We never told you because we had no answers. We were terrified of your questions." She didn't forget, she's been watching. And now she's standing at my gate. The Reddit thread exploded. The implications hit like a siren. Your mom saying, "I hoped she'd forgotten about you," is chilling. That phrasing means your parents knew she was aware, capable of remembering, capable of returning. Did you experience any weird health issues growing up? Memory gaps? Unusual medical stuff your parents seem to know about? OP might not even realize if something is medically off, because their parents clearly hid everything from them. But there's actually a pattern in folklore. Entities that feed children often cause subtle developmental changes that parents try to conceal. The mineral taste OP mentioned appears in 3 verified historical accounts. Those children all reported gaps in summers, unusual dreams, or unexplained scarring. If OP had any of that growing up, it might explain their parents' level of panic. And there it was. The silence between knowing and not knowing was over. So OP came back with an update, and it's the kind of update that confirms every fear. She was standing at the gate this morning. My father is making calls. I know I posted this a few days ago, but I need to document what's happening right now. She's here. She's actually here. This morning I went outside to check the back fence. Just routine maintenance stuff. And she was standing there at the gate, completely motionless. Not moving, not speaking, just standing and looking directly at me. And something about the way she was looking made my entire body go cold. I came inside and told my father. He went pale. Then he started making phone calls, first to lawyers, then to the police, then to someone else. I couldn't quite hear who. He keeps saying things like I don't have a name for her, and she's been around since 1998, possibly longer. And I have absolutely no idea how to even file a report about something like this. My mother heard the commotion and locked herself in the bedroom. I went to her door and asked her one final time what the neighbor actually is. She just repeated what she told me before. They never knew, they never asked. They just hoped she'd forgotten about me and found something else to do. But she didn't forget. She came back, 30 years, and she's at my gate, and I still don't know if she's been watching this entire time, or if something triggered her return, or if this is the first time she's checked in since I was a kid. And I don't know which possibility is worse anymore. And here's what gets under your skin when you sit with all of this. OP spent his entire childhood being hand-fed by something that shouldn't exist. He put his mouth on the hand of something other and never questioned it, never hesitated. The violation of that, not the physical touch itself, but the fact that something inhuman was close enough to do it, that it was intimate in a way that makes your skin crawl when you really think about it. That goes deep, that stays with you. Now she's back, she's watching. The questions that matter most: is she a threat? Has she been checking on him his whole life? Will she ever leave? None of them will ever be answered. OP will spend the rest of his days knowing something studied him, or hunted him, or touched him without consent. That's the real horror, not what she is, but that she was close to him, and she came back, and he'll never know why. On to the next one. My smart speaker wasn't listening to my voice commands anymore. It was listening to something else. 22 female. This one starts with everyday comfort and ends with the creeping realization that nothing about her home was actually private. I'm 22 and I've been really into smart home stuff for the past couple years. I have an Alexa in my bedroom and living room, a Ring doorbell, smart lights throughout my apartment, and a few other devices. It made my life easier. I could ask Alexa to play music, turn off lights, lock my door, all that stuff. Over the past month or so, I noticed weird glitches. Alexa would sometimes turn on lights I didn't ask for, or the Ring doorbell would send random notifications. I figured it was just software bugs or connectivity issues. I mostly ignored it. Then came the moment that changed everything. I was lying in bed one afternoon. My boyfriend Michael was at work, and for some reason I asked Alexa out loud, "Who is listening right now?" The response made my blood go cold. Alexa said his name, his actual name. Not a random error message or confused voice command response, she said. Clear as day. Michael is listening. My hands were shaking. I pulled up my Amazon Alexa app and there was a notification I'd somehow missed. A message inside the app itself. When I opened it, I saw text typed out like a message thread, except I didn't send any of these messages. The first one read, "Don't ask questions you don't want answered." She didn't have time to feel fear yet. All she could feel was the violation of it, that someone had been listening all along. That message was just the beginning of a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. The shock wore off fast, replaced by something colder. Fear and clarity mixed together. She called her boyfriend first, had to, but his confusion when she explained that wasn't an act. He'd been at work the whole time, and more than that, he didn't have the technical skills for something like this. This was someone else entirely. OP came back online with a detailed post laying out exactly what she found when she actually looked at the devices. I found evidence of who he is, and I'm not going back. I called Michael immediately. His voice was wrong. He didn't know anything about this. I could hear it, genuine confusion, almost panic. That's when I knew this was real. I went back to my phone and opened the Alexa app. The message from Michael was still there. I scrolled up. There were dozens of them, spread across weeks. How had I missed these notifications? Then I opened the app activity log. Every device showed unauthorized access. The timestamps hit me hard. The access logs went back months. Unauthorized login attempts, successful connections from unknown IPs, extended sessions at odd hours when I was sleeping. I pulled up the Ring doorbell footage. The timestamps didn't match. Some videos were labeled as recorded on days I know the camera was off. Others had gaps, hours missing. When I looked at the metadata, I could see evidence of someone else's access running parallel to mine. I realized he'd been in my network the entire time, living in my walls, watching, listening, learning everything about me. For months, and I'd had no idea. I deleted every device from my account, changed every password, and I made a decision, whoever this was, I wasn't going to make it easy anymore. The scale of it hit her hard. Not days, not even weeks. Months of access. Months of someone living in the space between her devices and her life, and she'd never noticed. Every conversation, every moment, all cataloged somewhere in the dark. She was safe in her apartment, or so she thought, but the real violation was already inside. OP went through every single device, methodically. I started with the Alexa. The access logs showed login attempts from IPs I didn't recognize, flagged as unusual activity, but I'd ignored the warnings. July 15th, first access. Today was mid-October. 3 months of someone living inside my network. I checked every device. Ring doorbell, compromised since mid-August, watching when I left, when I came home. Smart lights, the bathroom vent fan I'd never password protected. He was there before I knew he existed, but the access logs were just the technical part. The horrifying part was my voice memos. I record at night when I can't sleep. Every single memo from the past 3 months was accessed by him. He knew about my anxiety, what my ex said to me, how I cried in my car because my mom made me feel like I was wasting my life. He'd been listening to me in my most alone moments. The detective said it was credential stuffing. One person initiated it, but the damage was 3 months of total surveillance. He knew my schedule, when I showered, which days I don't leave my apartment. He was closer to me than anyone real in my life, and that thought made me want to burn everything down. The comment section lit up. Oh my God. This is my biggest fear with smart devices. That feeling of being watched in your own home while you think you're alone. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Have you contacted Amazon directly about a security lawsuit? Please tell me you've gone to the FBI's Cybercrimes Division, not just local police. This is federal if the hacker crossed state lines. A regular detective won't know how to handle digital evidence properly. The location history part is the scary. How did he know you were checking? Was it just him watching, or could other people have access to your data? That's what I can't stop thinking about. The detective said credential stuffing usually means one person initially, but once they're in, they could share access or sell the credentials to others. I don't even know if Michael is his real name. I've frozen every account, but I keep wondering if I'm being paranoid, or if I'm not paranoid enough. The paranoia is the part that doesn't leave. OP came back with an update post a few days later. I found evidence of who he is and I'm not going back. I don't know where to start. I contacted the police like everyone said, but they wanted proof, which felt impossible since he's inside my own devices. But then Michael messaged me again. This time it wasn't cryptic. This time he was done playing. He sent me a document. He had been keeping notes about me, detailed notes, where I went each day, who I met, what I wore, what I talked about in my apartment. He knew my insecurities. He knew which conversations made me anxious, which ones made me laugh. He knew things about my relationship that even my boyfriend didn't know I felt. And then the message came through: delete your entire account. All of it. Or I'll make sure everyone knows the things you've told only me. You've never had anyone listen like I do. I hate myself for this, but part of me felt seen in that moment. Not the threat part, the other part, someone actually listening, actually understanding, not dismissing me or forgetting what I said the next day. He was inside my life in a way that felt like intimacy. That's what broke me, not the fear, the recognition. The comments came fast and they were brutal. This is genuinely one of the most disturbing things I've read on this sub. The notes he was writing are the worst part. He wasn't just hacking, he was analyzing you. That's not just a criminal, that's a stalker with technical skills and a psychological obsession. Do not communicate with him again. Every interaction is data he's collecting. Get a professional forensic security auditor to check your devices before you reconnect anything. Document every screenshot. Has your ISP reported other hacking complaints in your area? If this guy was doing password guessing on your street, he likely targeted multiple people. There could be other victims who don't even know they're compromised. And that's the nightmare that gets worse the more you think about it. But deleting an account doesn't erase a violation. It just changes where you have to live with it. OP, 22 female, had already taken her smart home offline, filed a police report. Michael remained a ghost. No real name, no real identity, just knowledge he shouldn't have had. I found evidence of who he is, and I'm not going back. The police told me to be patient, that they'd investigate. I kept digging. I pulled my Amazon purchase history, my transaction records, my internet logs. I found a pattern in the IP addresses. Michael had rerouted through multiple VPNs, but there were timestamps when he slipped up. One address traced back to a server in Maryland. From there, I found a username linked to multiple hacking forums. A man with a criminal record for unauthorized computer access. A man who'd done this before. I'm staying with my friend Jessica for now. I haven't been back to my apartment. The thought of walking in there, knowing he'd been watching, knowing what he'd heard and seen in every room, the shower, my bedroom, the kitchen while I'm alone at night. I can't do it yet. Maybe not for a long time. But I'm not stopping. I sent everything to the police. They're looking for him now. And I'm changing locks? Hiring someone to sweep the house for devices I might have missed. Starting over. The horror isn't that he's gone. It's that I don't know if he ever left, or if others are still there. Here's what gets under your skin about this kind of violation. A stranger knows you better than your own family. He knows your routines, your fears, your secrets. He's heard every private thought, every late-night worry. There's a twisted intimacy in surveillance. The watcher becomes the truest confidant because he's never seen you perform, never heard you lie, just listened, always. And that's what made Michael dangerous, not the technology, but the fact that his attention felt like love to someone starving for it. Imagine your smart home as a keeper of your privacy. Now imagine someone holding all those keys. Michael was one person with access. The real horror is wondering how many others have a copy. That is the last story for today.